Hello, people, aliens, monsters, funny looking people, kind of like me. Um, I want I come to you today to share my story and to share how I came to faith. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. And I just want to share that. I want to share the gospel with you in my way, not to be pushy, but just to share my most authentic self. So I'm going to do that. And how do you tell a story like this? You tell a story like this just by starting at the beginning. I think that's the easiest way to do things. It's just start at the beginning and just go. So I'm going to do that. I was born in Portland, Oregon. I live here in Pendleton, about 4 hours, give or take, from Portland. Um, I was I I was born 2 months premature, which me and that was because of a doctor's mistakes, he what he did was he ordered an ultrasound, but did not read the ultrasound and thought that I was further along than I was, and I wasn't. I was about 4 pounds 3 ounces, give or take. Um, so I was tiny, very tiny. And so that caused me later on, about 2 years later, to develop cerebral palsy. And uh, cerebral palsy is developed by a lack of oxygen to the brain. So that's why I'm so crazy. um, that's why I'm so nuts. But um, uh, but I thought, but sorry, um, yeah. So but as a matter of that, I've had a really rough childhood. My life now today's from 18 onward has been pretty easy, but my life as a child was pretty difficult. Uh, I have had over, let's say, 5 or 6 different operations, but over 100 different procedures done in those operations. Um, Mostly around my legs and private parts. In fact, my latest surgery that I had back in 2012 wasn't because of my legs at all. It was uh, my my appendix. Oddly enough, it decided to go woohoo and go bad, and that was painful. But most of my surgeries were done um, to help me develop to walk better. Um, I've had my hips rotated. I've had tubes put in my ears. I've had uh, my hamstrings stretched. I've had my gastrocs removed. Or I've had bone surgery. I've had a lot of things done to me over these. So I am very familiar with a hospital setting. Oh, and fun. Here's the thing that irritates me about the hospital system is that they tell you to get rest after surgery or you give birth if you're a woman. Because my friend Sarah and me can kind of marvel at this idea. When she was in the hospital, it's like they tell you to get rest, but it's like 5 minutes later they come in. We gotta check your vitals. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. We gotta put pins and needles in you. Sorry for spitting. Oh, but anyway, I digress. Um. Anyway, I'm gonna kind of getting off track here. But I was born with cerebral palsy. It was mainly developed in my legs, even though I do have some learning disabilities and some cognitive issues. I would say um, memory issues as well. Like my long term memory is a lot better than my short term. I'm sorry, excuse me. Um, okay, okay, where was I? Okay. So, okay. So, as a side effect, well, not as a side effect, but I was kind of raised as a believer, and I would consider the fact that I am physically disabled and uh, in such a severe state that um, that it would impact my life enough to make a difference. I consider um, being being a believer, I was far more likely to become a believer because of it. I was also a victim of abuse as a child, and mostly mentally and emotionally. Um, just being put down all the time, uh, being defined by my disability, and being defined by the fact that he believed, my stepdad at the time, he will remain nameless, um, uh, that he was so obsessed with me becoming healed that he did a lot of things that harmed me in the long run. And I would say that would be another reason why I became a member. I stayed because I was raised to be a believer. Like we went to church all the time. Uh, Sunday, Wednesday night, the typical white evangelical week is kind of my experience. But the reason I stayed and continued on my own faith journey, which is a very particular point. There is a point that you have to acknowledge your own your own path to where you're from. Where, sorry, I hit the microphone. I got it. I'm still learning, guys. um, where you acknowledge your own path to where you um from the path of your ancestors, of your progeny, of your line. Um, you're not your progeny because it's after, but you get the point. And I stayed a believer because while going through that abuse, while going through that um hard time in my life, which lasted from, I would say, first or second grade to fifth grade, about 5 years, give or take. Um, that God became my father. God was the person that when I was the most upset, I would run to. And he would be the one to physically comfort me when something was going wrong, whether it was my own doing or the abuse or something else. And that's really it. And that's kind of where it started, is that seeing God as a father. And then as I grew, first we all go through a religious stage, like a super jerky religious stage that at times I still kind of struggle with. But in high school it was particularly bad. Um, and if any of the particularly youth group were to hear me, they know who they are. Around when I was a teenager, if you end up seeing this podcast, I apologize. I was I was a big jerk, and but I kind of realized that it kind of covered up for my own hypocrisy because at the time I was struggling with a lot of sin issues, um, um, a lot of lustful thoughts, and even a small porn, which I still kind of struggle with from time to time. And so it was kind of I was kind of hiding hypocrisy at the same time. Um, but when I reached my 20s, I my faith really emerged into its own because of the group I was around, my group of friends in high school, in my schooling years, kindergarten to 18, kindergarten to senior year of high school, 12 years. I didn't really have very many friends at all. I had lunch buddies on occasion. And I had a few good best friends, but nothing to the level that I would consider that I have now, or even then. Like in my 20s, I had to learn quickly how to acclimate to uh, how to acclimate to society and what's appropriate and what's not. And I had a lot of heartache because of that. And sorry. Um, but as my faith matured, because I was part of this group of friends that really just ran after God. We were nerds and we loved movies and geeky stuff, but our main um, our main objective was to run after God. We talked about doing ministry together. There were a lot of times that members within that group did ministry together. Um, there were a lot of times with my friend Grant and my friend Kayla at the time, and sometimes just me and Grant. We would go to the malls of the West Georgia area and to different churches and just do ministry, do prayer and do ministry. Um, and I found that to be one of the very few times in my life that I was presented with an opportunity to step outside my comfort zone. I'm very much comfortable uh, being alone or being not the center of attention. But I'm not used to the spotlight. But I'm not used to being the one to present the answers, and God has really kind of worked on me with that because He's given me also, I hate to toot my own horn, but charisma. Like I believe that I am a leader, and He's given me that. But I also have some massive inferiority complex um, that sometimes inhibits my ability to um, preach the gospel and preach Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Um, and and but as I because but to get back to the story, as I moved through my 20s, worship, particularly with music, because there's different levels of worship. Like doing this right now is a worship, but I'm talking about music, and I'm talking about uh, how music can affect us. I think uh, I used to be involved in the major charismatic movements like the Ramp um, and IHOP, and which is the International House of Prayer, run by Mike Bickle. I was not part of that church in particular. I was part of. I visited actually. I wasn't actually a part, but I visited prayer houses in Atlanta, and and with the Ramp in Hamilton, Alabama, which was run by Karen Wheaton. For those that don't know, she used to be a world famous Christian singer. She sung with the Gaither Vocal Band, and she was rather famous. And then back in 1999, which is Oddly enough, when Mike Bickle started the International House of Prayer, and also Lou Giglio with the Call, which was all started in that same year of 1989. So God was really working on him in God was working on something in that time period. To have three different people that didn't know who they were, have similar visions, and she was told to start a youth group by God, and she was uh, she was a like a world famous singer, knew nothing about kids, and so she went, but she said okay. She dropped what she was doing, went back home to Hamilton, Alabama, and that ministry grew from a small youth group to a large worship center. And back in 20, from I would say 20, 2011, 2010, 2011 to 2012, I was really affected by that culture, which was heavy into music. It was quite intense. And I understand the value of, if I don't understand the technical aspect of music, I am not a musician. Told my friend Grant once, because he sent me a video of the technicals of music. I'm like, I am a songwriter, but I am not a musician, so it was just Greek to me. But I understood the value of music, and how music can can render the heart, and render the heart ready for the word. Um, and sometimes I even think it's even more important than the word. Some of my pastors may chagrin at that, but I think that, but I truly, honestly believe that music and worshiping God, and giving your all to Him in music and worship is far more valuable, because God can meet you there than a good sermon. A good sermon is for us to know what to do when we get out of the church, to either encourage us or equip us. But worship, in my opinion, is our gift to God. It's our gift through our voices, no matter how good or bad you are, it doesn't matter. Through our voices, through our through our spirits, and through our so through ourselves, and through our whole entire bodies, up to God. It's a literal gift, is what it is. And I think that we should value worship with music and with songs, and songs of praise, far more valuably than I think we do now. Um, but essentially, and as I grew, I went into um, ministry school about 22, 23, and I learned a lot about boundaries. I learned a lot about uh, that I was an emotional mess, and that I've learned recently that I'm still very much an emotional mess. Um, that I'm still learning and growing, but that good relationships are valuable, and sometimes you need to be aware of how you are internally, and how are you being received by other people in your actions. Um, um, but yeah, that's basically it. um, you know, I know that I've also kind of continued to struggle with what's my purpose, and that's because for most of my life I frankly did not know. I did not. I and I still struggle with that every day, where I have a better idea now with stuff like this. I write. I do essays and short stories, um, and song lyrics, and but I don't know where that's going to lead. If that's going to lead to anything, and if it doesn't, then at least I made the attempt. At least I made. At least I, didn't miss my shot like the Hamilton musical. um, I didn't waste the opportunity. Um, I made the effort, and that's really what God expects of us, is that you may never be a Billy Graham. There's only going to be a few Billy Grahams or big time leaders within the Christian world. You may be a mom raising I hate to call someone out, but raising a child with special needs. She knows who she is, and so I'm not going to say her name because anonymity and everything. But she knows who she is because I will send this to her as soon as it's done. So you may be a mom with a kid with special needs, and you may be, you know, you may be just trying to live through the day without tearing your hair out because you're dealing with a kid with special needs. He's barely a year old, um, and and but you have the opportunity to nurture. Even you have the ability to nurture God within him, even if he doesn't understand yet, even if he cannot quantify it yet, even though if he can't articulate it yet. You yourself, you know who I'm talking to. You yourself have the opportunity to preach the gospel, even if it's not to a crowd, even if it's to a kid, because you're being faithful with what you have. You're being faithful with. I have another friend that is works at a call center. I'm not going to tell the company's name because I am anonymity and everything. And he struggles with certain issues. He's got autism, but he's a believer as well. And I just want to say to him that even if he cannot like say like the word Jesus, because I don't want him to lose his job, that that he has the opportunity through kind words, through compassion, through understanding of the individual person's problems, that even though he cannot be overt about it, he can present the gospel in small ways and in small doses that can affect someone in the long run. I have another friend that is a military chaplain with the Army National Guard, and he has a great sense of responsibility, and I would encourage him: do not falter in that duty. Do not falter in that thing. You are doing God's work. You are working in sometimes hostile situations and tough situations where you have to deal with men and women that have to deal with the fact that they may not come back, and you have to be that bulwark between them and oblivion. You have to be that gateway to the Father. And I know you, and you're doing a wonderful job at that. I've not seen you in work, like in that type of work. I haven't been able to work with you yet, but in ministry. But I hope one day will get that opportunity. But I already know because of your friendship with me that you're doing a wonderful job. All three of you are because of your friendship with me. And this this started as a story about me and then turned into encouraging others, you know? You never know where this is gonna lead. But um but essentially, um you know, I love the people around me. I love my family. I love the Father. And that's the point. That's why I'm at this every single day. That's why I consider myself a believer. And that's why I believe in the power of prayer. Because it affects it does affect you throughout your day. And and you know, I may not be the strongest or the smartest person out there, but even for me, this is enough. And for you out there, you may not be the strongest person or the smartest person out there, but if you're doing what you're called to do, because the Bible says to do what you do to the glory of God, and that may mean a janitor, that may mean a teacher, that may mean a cashier, that may mean tons of, you know, somebody that sells propane, like another friend of mine. Actually, the husband of the other friend that I was talking about. So they definitely know who this. Um, even he, like, I think, you know, he's going to be a pastor one day. Like, I may get to it first, he may get to it first, who knows? But I think he's going to be a pastor one day, if not with the title, at least in its home. He's a man of great influence, and I respect him and love him and his wife very dearly. But anyway, that's beside the point. Even he, as he sells propane, he has the opportunity. I guess I'm going to encourage everybody in my friend group right now. So, even he does. Even if he can't speak about it openly, he has the opportunity, like my friend that works at the call center, um, um, to be a guiding light and to be a kind influence to his coworkers, to people to customers, and to people that probably would not have the most pleasant dispositions. This also goes for my friend at the call center. You know, you have the opportunity to speak into a dark situation without really knowing what the dark situation is, because you know people are sometimes irritated. They go and and uh and even that you have the opportunity, like your wife, to raise your son in an atmosphere that um that that will mature him emotionally, mentally, physically into the man that he will eventually become. So this podcast really became less about me and more about what ministry is, and it's encouraging. Ministry is telling I believe 50%. Let's say 50% telling the truth, and actually I would say 75% telling the truth. But also in that, and how we present 100% telling the truth, but also in that, presenting the truth in a kind and caring way so it can be digestible to most people. Because with most people today, we you know they have a negative view of Christianity, and sometimes I'm going to be frank, sometimes it's justified. That we have people that are judgy and mean, and when they present themselves in ministry, they forget their past. And I hope that overall, when I stand before the Father, that my record is going to be much more on the encouraging side than the being mean or rude side. You're definitely going to see some of that, but I hope those things are washed away, and that's my belief, and that's my hope. But I think we're done. I think, yeah, being defined by my disability and overcoming that, which I am overcoming every day, and also my value for music and the word, and being equipped and being a pastor and encourager, and then ending with encouraging my friends in their own personal ministries, how big, no matter how big or small they are, and I think we're done. I think that's how the cookie crumbles, guys. So I'm gonna say good day to you, good evening or good morning, no, whenever you watch this. And to my friends, I love you all, and I hope to see you all very very soon. To the rest of you, I love you the same, and I hope that one day we will be able to see each other worshiping our Father in complete unity. See you later.